Welcome to Human Parallax, where ordinary eyes can see the extraordinary. I stood above the cliffs as the sun leaned toward the horizon, its fading light trembling across the restless sea below. Waves rose and fell like breathing giants, crashing against stone that had learned patience long before crowns existed. I had worn power once. I had spoken with its voice. Yet here, watching the ocean refuse all command, I remembered how small authority truly is. Behind me, the world waited. Ahead of me, the sea did not. That contrast followed me long after my crown was set aside. The wind rose, carrying salt and echoes. It pulled me backward through years I no longer ruled. Childhood returned not as warmth, but as clarity. Stone corridors. Quiet footsteps. The sense that something vast always watched us, waiting. We were taught early that silence mattered more than noise. Not peace. Silence. That was how lessons arrived in our house. My father, King Draven, never raised his voice. He did not need to. When he entered a room, conversations adjusted themselves. "Speak only if you've weighed the cost," he once said, eyes fixed on a distant map. "And if the cost is too high?" my brother Finn asked. "Then you learn to carry it," my father replied, without turning. That was his mercy. He never lied about the weight of rule. My mother ruled differently. Where my father commanded restraint, Queen Seren commanded understanding. "Strength doesn't always announce itself," she told me once, placing her hand over mine. "Sometimes it waits." In council, her questions reshaped entire debates. She never forced silence. She earned it. And when she spoke, even power leaned closer to listen. Finn was never built for silence. He carried fire where I carried distance. "How long do we bow before we forget how to stand?" he demanded one night. Advisor Lys answered sharply, "Honor does not protect nations." Finn turned to me. "And you, Athel?" I said nothing. Even then, I understood that hesitation itself could be a form of control. Advisor Lys believed in systems, doctrine, precedent. Civilizations endure by following rules larger than themselves, he often reminded us. And when rules fail, Finn pressed. "Then they were not followed correctly," Lys replied. At the time, I believed him. Later, I would watch that certainty fracture for the first time. Kieran rarely spoke unless spoken to. He poured wine, carried messages, stood where eyes passed over him. Yet he noticed everything. Once, when the council dismissed a rumor, he paused beside me and whispered, "Some warnings come softly, my prince." That was all. It was enough. We were not alone in the dark. Beyond our skies, other powers moved, quiet, ancient, patient. "The coalitions are observing," Advisor Lys reported. "Observing what?" my father asked. "How we respond when tested," Lys answered. No one smiled. Observation was never neutral. Her name entered the palace like a shadow. Never announced. Never denied. "Careful," someone whispered. "She listens." "Queens always do," my mother replied calmly. No order had been given. No ships had moved. Yet the room felt smaller. That was when I learned, fear does not always arrive with noise. Standing above the cliffs now, I see it clearly. Stability is not peace. It is preparation. We believed ourselves secure because nothing moved against us. We were wrong. The sea still churns below me, unchanged. And somewhere beyond it, judgment once decided to look our way. The message arrived on an ordinary morning. No alarms. No burning sky. No ships darkening the sun. That was what unsettled me. I remember standing beside my father as the seal resolved itself in the air, light folding inward like a held breath. Orders usually came wrapped in force. This one came wrapped in certainty. "A transmission?" Finn asked. "From where?" Advisor Liss did not look away from the light. From beyond our coalition borders. My thoughts narrowed. A message without violence was never harmless. It meant someone believed they did not need to threaten us. The words were precise, polite, final. "This is not a declaration of hostility," the voice translated calmly. "It is a directive." My father's jaw tightened. "She does not ask permission," Finn muttered. "She assumes it." Queen Seren spoke evenly. "Assumption is a form of power." The decree listed expectations, not negotiations. Compliance was treated as inevitable, resistance as a misunderstanding yet to be corrected. There was no insult in the tone. That made it worse. I felt something shift then, not anger, but awareness. We were not being challenged. We were being measured. No one addressed me directly, yet I felt the weight move. The order referenced the ruling authority of the system without naming me. As if my crown were provisional. As if my rule existed only until reviewed. "They speak as though sovereignty is temporary," I said quietly. Liss nodded. "In their doctrine, it often is." I thought of the cliffs. Of the sea. Of how power erodes not through storms, but through time. My crown had not been removed. It had been placed on a scale. The chamber fractured instantly. "They can't do this," Finn snapped. "Not without consequence." A counselor whispered, "We are not prepared." Another asked, "What if we comply for now?" Voices overlapped. Fear, pride, calculation. No single emotion held the room. My father raised one hand. Silence obeyed him, as it always had. "We respond," he said, "after we understand the cost." I watched them all, noting who spoke first and who waited. Pressure does not create character. It reveals it. What struck me most was what did not happen. No one shouted for war. No one demanded surrender. No one fled. We sat with it. "This restraint," I said softly, more to myself than them, "is not comfort. It's calculation." Queen Seren met my eyes. Humans rarely panic when the danger is real. She was right. Panic belongs to surprises. This felt anticipated, like a test we had known was coming, even if we never named it. King Draven walked to the center of the chamber, hands clasped behind his back. "If we obey," he said, "we live under conditions chosen by another." "And if we refuse?" Finn asked. "We survive the consequences," my father replied. "Or we do not." Liss stepped forward. Galactic precedent favors compliance. Draven turned slowly. Precedent favors survival. At what cost is the question? I had never heard him frame obedience as violence before. I understood then how close the blade already was. Queen Seren did not raise her voice. "What do they gain if we agree?" she asked. No one answered immediately. "And what do we lose?" she continued, "even if we survive?" Finn exhaled sharply. Liss looked down. "Survival that requires forgetting who we are," she said gently, "is not survival. It is delay." Her words did not end the debate. They redirected it. That was always her gift. "This is simple," Finn said, stepping forward. "We refuse." "Honor does not feed cities," Liss countered. "Nor does obedience protect them forever," Finn shot back. He looked at me. "Say something." I hesitated. Not because I disagreed, but because I knew honor alone does not stop consequences. "We must choose carefully," I said. "Not loudly." Finn shook his head. "Quiet choices still leave scars." He was right. He always was. He just wanted them visible. Liss activated the archive, symbols and outcomes unfolding around us. "In similar cases," he said, "compliance preserved populations." "And identity?" my mother asked. Lys paused. That is, less consistent. He closed the archive slowly. Rules work until the people inside them change. It was the first time I had seen doctrine hesitate. Kieran stepped forward without being summoned. My prince, he said quietly, eyes lowered, there is more. My father nodded once. The order, Kieran continued, is not the first. Others received similar directives. Those who agreed lost autonomy within a generation. Silence settled heavier than any shout. They survived, Finn said. Yes, Kieran replied, but no longer as themselves. No one declared rebellion. No one pledged obedience. We sat with the truth. I realized then that defiance could exist without banners or speeches. It could exist in refusal to vanish quietly. We will answer, my father said at last. On our terms. That was all. Yet it changed everything. As the council dispersed, I remained behind. The message still hovered, patient and unmoved. It did not threaten us. It simply waited. I understood then that this was not about territory or resources. It was about whether we would accept a future designed for us, or insist on carrying the cost of choosing our own. Between survival and identity, the space had narrowed, and judgment had begun. The second demand followed the first without urgency, as if patience itself were a weapon. No fleets, no threats, just adjustments. Small enough to explain, heavy enough to feel. They are pressing slowly, I said. Pressure breaks stone better than force, King Draven replied. I watched maps shift by fractions, permissions rewritten by clauses. Each change seemed survivable alone. Together, they formed a grip. War announces itself. This did not. That was what frightened me most. The request arrived disguised as cooperation. Shared resource allocation, Advisor Lys read aloud. Finn laughed once, sharply. They mean tribute. Queen Seren folded her hands. They mean leverage. We can afford this, Lys insisted. For now. For now is how dependence begins, Finn snapped. My father said nothing. He only nodded once. Later, I watched grain convoys rerouted without ceremony. No protests. No speeches. Hunger does not wait for pride to speak. Borders shifted next. Not seized, redefined. These regions are sparsely populated, Lys argued. Temporary oversight. Temporary, Finn repeated bitterly. My father traced the lines slowly. We are not ceding land, he said. We are buying time. I understood then that survival sometimes required surrendering ground without ever kneeling. The maps changed. The people remained. For now. The request for symbols arrived last. Flags. Seals. Ceremonial acknowledgments. They want recognition, Lys said carefully. No, my mother replied. They want memory rewritten. I felt something tighten in my chest. Symbols outlast laws. They teach children what power looks like. If we agree, Finn said, we tell the galaxy who owns our future. Silence followed. That silence carried more weight than any order before it. Some customs changed quietly. Others refused. We can alter the oath, Lys suggested. And the coronation? Finn asked. No, my father said firmly. That remains. Queen Seren nodded. Some traditions anchor us. Remove them, and we drift. Each choice cut differently. We learned what could bend without shattering, and what would shatter us if bent even once. When the delegation was demanded, Finn volunteered. I'll go, he said. My father turned sharply. No. They want a symbol, Finn continued. Let it be me. You'll lose influence, Lys warned. Finn met my eyes. I can afford that. I said nothing. I could not stop him without betraying what he was offering. He left with his head high, and returned quieter. Queen Seren spoke for us after that. We accept cooperation, she said calmly, not erasure. The reply came cold. Your position is noted. She did not argue. She repeated herself, unchanged. Watching her, I learned that firmness did not require volume. She yielded nothing essential, and somehow neither did they. For the moment, Lys changed. He stopped opening archives first. He watched reactions instead. Doctrine assumes rational actors, he admitted quietly to me one night. And people? I asked. They endure, he said, even when rules collapse. For the first time, Lys trusted judgment over precedent. It unsettled him. It reassured me. Kieran began moving information before permission. These shipments will be delayed, he whispered once. Why? I asked. Because they must be, he replied. Later, I learned he had redirected them himself. Punishment? I asked. He shrugged. If it comes. Loyalty does not announce itself. It acts. Publicly, we remained composed. Privately, consequences surfaced. Families relocated. Officers reassigned. Nights grew longer. We are holding, Lys said in council. Yes, my father replied. But at cost. I saw that cost in my mother's eyes, in Finn's silence, in the servants who moved more carefully now. Strategy saves nations. It rarely spares individuals. One night, Finn laughed at a broken seal. Imagine, he said dryly, if they could see us now. The sound startled us. Then someone else smiled. We let the moment breathe. Humor under pressure is not denial. It is defiance without noise. No statues were raised. No speeches made. We endured. Quietly. Persistently. Is this enough? I once asked my father. It must be, he replied, because it is what we can afford. Heroism seeks witnesses. Endurance does not. We remained standing. Reduced. Altered. Have we won anything? Finn asked me one evening. We are still here, I said. He nodded. Then that will have to be enough. Leadership, I learned, often means accepting outcomes no one applauds. Observers whispered. They're weak, some said. They're calculating, others argued. None saw the line we refused to cross. They mistake restraint for surrender, Lys noted. That mistake, my mother said softly, is theirs to make. When the demands finally slowed, I barely recognized us. Not broken. Not whole. Changed. We had learned what pressure reveals, and what it forges. Standing at the cliffs later, watching the sea endure the pull of the moon, I understood. We had not resisted loudly. We had endured completely. And the galaxy was still watching. The final message did not pretend to respect us. Its tone was clean, efficient, and bare of ritual. Where earlier orders had worn diplomacy like a glove, this one arrived with nothing to soften its edges. This is the final adjustment, the translation concluded. No greeting. No reassurance. They've stopped pretending, Finn said. I felt it immediately. Galactic norms were not being bent anymore. They were being discarded. Courtesy exists only where equality is acknowledged. Its absence told me exactly how we were now seen. Measured. Judged. Found insufficient. The conditions were simple. Compliance would guarantee protection, resources, and continuity, under supervision. Our systems would function. Our people would live. As wards, Advisor Lys said quietly. As echoes, Queen Seren corrected. Finn's voice sharpened. They're offering mercy. No, my father replied. They're offering erasure without blood. The word survival glowed in the air like bait. I understood then how easily existence could be preserved by surrendering meaning. The alternative was clear. Refusal would isolate us. Strip protections. Invite consequences no one bothered to list. They won't need to attack, Liz warned. They'll wait. I stared at the projection until it blurred. Survival without selfhood is not life. Resistance offered no victory, no safety, only continuity of identity. We would lose, Finn said. Yes, I answered. But we would lose as ourselves. That was the only certainty left. King Draven turned to face us all. We refuse, he said. No one reacted at first. The words settled like dust after collapse. Finn exhaled slowly. My mother closed her eyes. Liz stiffened. Kieran did not move. The silence was not shock. It was recognition. Every person in that chamber understood the weight that had just shifted onto our future. This decision is final, my father continued. If any cannot carry it, speak now. No one did. This path costs everything, Liz said. Yes, Draven replied. But obedience costs more. He looked at me then, not as a king to a prince, but as a man to his son. Stand with me, he said. I always have, I answered. That was the last moment hesitation was allowed. Queen Seren stepped forward. We will not beg, she said calmly. Nor will we threaten. The response came swiftly. Then you accept the consequences. She inclined her head. We always have. I watched her breathe through the knowledge of what would be lost. Lives, safety, futures. Acceptance did not weaken her. It steadied her. Some losses are faced, not fought. Finn said nothing. He simply met my eyes. In that look was every argument we had ever shared, every doubt, every unspoken fear. Then he nodded once. Whatever comes, he said, we face it. I placed my hand on his shoulder. No promises were needed. We both knew none could be kept. This violates every principle I've taught, Liz said quietly. Then he straightened. That is why I support it. My father studied him. You're certain? Liz nodded. Rules that demand we vanish are not rules worth surviving. It was the first time he chose people over doctrine without hesitation. Kieran moved before anyone asked. I will transmit the refusal, he said. You understand what this means, I told him. He met my gaze. I have always understood my place. As he activated the relay, I knew his name would be recorded, not as a servant, but as a point of no return. Some loyalty leaves no room for safety. There was no speech, no declaration. Systems rerouted. Safeguards disengaged. Defensive protocols shifted from compliance to readiness. We proceed, my father said. And we did. Defiance did not roar. It moved quietly, deliberately, like a door closing that would never open again. The response was immediate. Trade lines vanished. Patrol routes withdrew. Support collapsed. Supply networks are failing, Liz reported. Finn clenched his jaw. They didn't wait. They never do, my father replied. The cost arrived before protest could form. That was the lesson. Consequences do not argue. No one spoke of winning. We endure, Queen Seren said. That's all. Finn asked. That's everything, she replied. Hope was replaced by resolve. Victory belongs to those who expect applause. We expected survival. We lost reach, influence, certainty. Positions changed. Lives narrowed. This is permanent, Liz said. Yes, I answered. That's why it matters. Nothing returned to what it had been. Stability was gone. Only purpose remained. As systems fell silent, something else rose. Not chaos. Not panic. Endurance. They feared us not for strength, but for refusal to disappear quietly. I understood then why we were watched. Why we were tested. We were unpredictable, not because we fought, but because we endured. There were no last words sent. No final threats. Only silence. And within that silence, we remained. Not victorious. Not safe. But unbroken. And that, I knew, would echo farther than any war cry. The galaxy did not respond with outrage or praise. It recalibrated. Trade lanes shifted. Signals rerouted. Patrols redrew invisible lines. Nothing dramatic enough to be called punishment, nothing generous enough to be forgiveness. They're adapting, Advisor Liss said, watching the data scroll past. Yes, I replied. So are we. There were no victory declarations broadcast across the stars. No condemnation either. Just a quiet acknowledgement that something had changed, and would not return to its previous shape. The absence of reaction unsettled me more than hostility ever could. It began subtly. Requests phrased more carefully. Messages routed through intermediaries rather than imposed directly. Ships pausing at our borders instead of passing through as if we were empty space. They're being cautious, Finn observed. They're being respectful, my mother corrected. No one congratulated us. No one thanked us. But they accounted for us. Respect that arrives without ceremony is rarely performative. It is earned, and therefore fragile. Many old alliances dissolved quietly. They were built on convenience, Liss admitted. Not trust. New arrangements formed in fragments. Limited exchanges. Mutual observation. Shared risk. Reliability, King Draven said during one council session, is now our currency. Not power. Not reach. Reliability. It was slower. Harder. But it endured scrutiny. That mattered more than numbers ever had. King Draven aged in those weeks, not in body, but in posture. The cost is permanent, Liss warned him once. I know, my father replied. Do you regret it? He considered the question longer than I expected. No, he said. But I will carry it. Later, alone with me, he spoke more quietly. A king does not choose outcomes, he said. He chooses what he is willing to answer for. I had never understood leadership more clearly than in that moment. Queen Seren did not speak of what was lost. She did not list names or futures. She stood at the window one evening, watching ships depart that would not return. Do you miss it? I asked gently. She smiled faintly. I miss who we were allowed to be. Then she straightened. But I would not trade who we are now. Her grief did not weaken her. It refined her. Loss accepted without regret becomes wisdom. Finn changed. Not withdrawn. Focused. Do you regret going? I asked him one night. No, he replied. I regret thinking noise was strength. He no longer argued every point. He watched instead. Measured. Silence, I learned, can be maturity when chosen, not imposed. The fire in him had not gone out. It had learned control. Liss closed the archives more often now. Doctrine explains patterns, he said once. But people break them. And that troubles you? I asked. It humbles me, he replied. He listened more. Asked fewer declarative questions. The man who had once trusted systems above all else had learned their limits. Power, he said quietly, is knowing when rules no longer apply. Kieran remained silent as always. But his position changed. He attended briefings. carried authority, not just messages. "This is not your place," someone protested once. King Draven answered calmly. "It is earned." Kieran met my eyes later. "I only did what was necessary. And that," I told him, "is why you stand where you do." Recognition without ceremony carries the deepest weight. No one spoke the word victory. "We survived," Finn said. "Yes," I agreed. "At cost." Queen Seren nodded. "Illusions are expensive. Honesty is not." There were nights when uncertainty felt heavier than loss. But certainty built on denial collapses eventually. We chose truth instead. Standing once more above the cliffs, I watched the sea as I always had. The galaxy no longer asked how powerful are they. It asked what will they endure. That question unsettles empires. We had not won. We had not conquered. But we had refused to vanish quietly. And that, I understood, would echo far longer than any triumph. I returned to the cliffs long after the councils ended and the maps stopped changing. The sea below moved as it always had, indifferent to titles and treaties alike. Waves struck stone with the same patient force they always had, grinding certainty into memory. I had stood here as a prince, and later as a king. Now I stood as neither. Retirement had not lightened the weight, it had clarified it. Behind me, the world continued. Ahead of me, the sea did not acknowledge any of it. That, I had learned, was its lesson. The cup rested in my hands, steam long vanished. I drank anyway. Bitterness did not bother me anymore. "You always forget it," Finn's voice echoed from memory, amused. "I remember what matters," I had replied once. Time passes without ceremony. Decisions remain. I watched the horizon darken, thinking of nights spent awake, listening for consequences that never announced themselves loudly. Survival rarely does. The tea cooled. My thoughts did not. Some questions refused to fade. It took distance to see it clearly. The alien queen had never meant to conquer us. If she had, she would have. Power was not her uncertainty. She had tested us. She wanted a response, Advisor Liss had said after the silence stretched too long. "No," my mother had corrected gently. "She wanted a measure." Standing there now, I finally understood. She had not been asking what we owned, or what we controlled. She had been asking who we were when compliance was easier than resistance. There had been no audience when the costs arrived. No witnesses when the trade routes collapsed. No applause when we chose loss over erasure. That was the point. Endurance without spectacle reveals more than any display of force. It strips intent bare. I realized then that our quiet persistence had spoken louder than rebellion ever could have. We had endured not because we were watched, but despite believing no one was. And she had noticed. Strength invites opposition. Patience unsettles. "They don't know what to do with us," Finn had said once, half smiling. "They will," my father replied. "Eventually." But patience confuses predators. We did not rush to fill the silence they left behind. We waited. Fear does not rise from weapons. It rises from uncertainty, especially when paired with resolve. I felt it then, awe, threaded with something colder. Not pride. Recognition. The signal came as I stood there, the device at my side activating softly. No encryption, Kieran had noted later. No conditions. The message was brief. Almost respectful. Observation continues. No demands. No warnings. Queen Seren read it once and handed it back. "That is not closure." "No," I said. "It's acknowledgement." The silence that followed was heavier than any ultimatum. Silence implies thought. Thought implies change. And change, I knew, was never passive. I looked out over the sea one last time as the sky dimmed. She sees a species that does not need to announce itself. A people who endure pressure without demanding recognition. Leaders who accept loss without asking history to forgive them. She sees patience where dominance was expected, resolve where surrender was predicted. And she is adapting. That knowledge does not comfort me. It steadies me. Because whatever comes next will not be about power. It will be about endurance. And now, finally, the galaxy knows exactly how much of that we possess.